As we said in the last segment, Justin Amash has certainly caused a political storm with his comments about President Trump having committed impeachable offenses. And joining us on the other end of the line to talk about that is somebody who's been frustrated with the congressman from the 3rd District for some time. His name is Tom Norton. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Kyle. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us. For our listeners' benefit, Tom is a former village trustee over in Sand Lake, and he was a vet from the Afghan War. And sounds like you are well on your way to challenging Mr. Amash in the Republican primary in the 3rd Congressional District.
Well, yeah, we weren't really expecting his tweet to go on there like that. I mean, it almost sounded like Nancy Pelosi handed over the talking points to him, and he just decided to retweet it. I mean, he even had the gal that sits there and has made some special comments about Israel come on there and support his comments. So I find that very interesting, especially with his votes being almost in line with that congresswoman that we have on the east side of the state.
And that's a reference to Representative Rashida Tlaib. Now, were you surprised to see this tweet from Justin Amash come out and suggest that the president is engaged in impeachable offenses?
No, because when you sit here and you really look at it, he's been really, really the leader of the anti-Trump movement. I mean, he is fighting a president who has been focused on defending American jobs and defending trade. I mean, if you go to TomNortonUSA.com, you click on what we stand for. We actually stand for borders, supporting our allies. And the other part that I wanted to bring up, I was a village president. I'm also an Afghan war veteran, too. So I wasn't completely surprised over the years of problems we've had. That's why we filed on April 26th before the tweet even started. So, and if you get it, that's the type of stuff that I'm seeing going on here is the same exact problems that we've had with him in the 3rd District. He didn't fight Barack Obama like this.
So what do you think it is here about Donald Trump, and why do you feel like he's teaming up with Nancy Pelosi and Rashida Tlaib?
Well, what happened on Thursday and Friday? What did President Trump do that would affect Justin Amash so personally for him to go off on a tirade like that?
I don't know. Is it the trade stuff or the steel tariffs or what?
Tariffs in China.
Okay.
If you look at Mr. Amash's financial disclosures, his private sector business is almost completely in China. I'd probably say somewhere between 70-80% of his business.
Now, what does he do?
He really does a lot of tool imports. He has a vested interest in tool importation.
Okay, I thought that was his father's business, isn't it?
That is his father's, but the kids do have a stake in it. And the family's built a great company, and it's a great family that's there personally. But there's a lot of ways they could probably get tools built in the United States.
So you're saying that the steel tariffs, this has a connection somehow because he's being financially impacted by what Trump's doing.
That's what I think would actually be the majority of it.
Okay. But your issues with Justin Amash go a bit deeper than this particular issue.
It does. There's been a lack of support in the district on veterans, and it's not just veterans. It's regular folks and regular individuals. There's been so many times they feel ignored. There's times that he sits there and it looks like that he is more about his interests and not the interests of his district. I mean, you look at Berry County that just had the tornadoes hit, and I mean, it's a God blessing that nobody was actually injured into it. And being raised on a farm myself, like a lot of those folks feel ignored by him. I mean, there's been folks that sit there and they've been trying to get a hold of them, and they just really can't. And there's very few good stories, and it's far and few between.
Now, one could say, Tom, that this is a principled person who's walking the walk. He doesn't believe in government. He doesn't believe government should be an intrusion in people's lives, and so he doesn't want to engage in anything having to do with government.
Well, he voted for Obamacare 2.0. That'd be a massive conflict of his beliefs. Just about a couple months ago, he sat there and he voted for illegal immigrants with the Democratic Party, the only Republican to do so, on illegal immigrants or non-residents to have the right to vote. In the U.S. Constitution, it clearly talks about citizens and that Congress has the authority to do that. In the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, it's like he doesn't understand that we actually had a civil war to define some of these things. And then the following day, like 2 days later, his argument was mute because he argued that the federal government should not be involved in elections. He then proposes the largest federal government takeover bill for the Ballot Fairness Act to try to force the government to allow political parties from one state to be on all 50 states if they had ballot access in one state. Wouldn't that be completely conflicting with his votes from one day to the next when people aren't paying attention to him?
Tom Norton, he is a candidate who is running against Justin Amash in the Republican primary in the 3rd Congressional District, talking about the president's tweets over the weekend. Tom, thanks for being on the broadcast today. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much. Go to TomNortonUSA.com. They can learn a lot more. And again, I'm an Afghan war veteran, was village president, and with your support, we'll be able to go to Washington and actually support the American people.
All right. Thanks, Tom.